Testing. All right. Does that work? Testing. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nahal Garabi, and I'm going to be moderating this press briefing today. Per usual, we're going to begin with some brief statements from the participants, and then we're going to open up the floor to questions. Just as a reminder, we're going to stick to one question and one follow-up per person so that we can get through all of the questions, and if there's some additional time afterwards, we'll go ahead and get through the rest of the follow-up questions. The press briefing will be about 30 minutes. Today's speakers are Captain Jennifer Williams, Federal On-Scene Coordinator for the U.S. Coast Guard, Captain Mark Crosland, California Department of Fish and Wildlife, Dr. Mike Zaccardi from the UC Davis Oil Wildlife Care Network, Eric Gelstrom, Superintendent for the California State Parks, Rick McMichael, Senior Director of Operations, Plains All-American Pipeline, and Patrick Hodgins, Senior Director of Safety and Security for Plains All-American Pipeline. I know that there's a lot of speakers on the list today, so please see me if you have questions about spelling and titles, and I'll be sure to get all of those for you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Captain Jennifer Williams. I'm with the U.S. Coast Guard. I'm serving as the Federal On-Scene Coordinator for this event. As we continue to respond to the oil spill incident here in Santa Barbara County, tarball sightings have been observed in Los Angeles and Orange counties. We have set up a separate incident command post in the South Bay of Los Angeles County to respond to this pollution. I'm communicating closely with the South Bay Incident Unified Command as the response progresses. It is still too early to know what the source of those tarballs are from, or if it's even related to the Refugio beach incident. However, I have directed my staff to collect samples from the South Bay incident so we can analyze and fingerprint those samples to the samples we're collecting in this incident. This analysis will help us determine if the pollution in the South Bay is the result of the Refugio oil spill or if it's a result of another source. Also, the Unified Command is looking forward to a community open house this Saturday, May 30th at the Elks Lodge, number 613 in Santa Barbara from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. The event is free and open to the public. Numerous booths will be set up with the information regarding the oil spill response to include environmental impacts, volunteer opportunities, how to file a claim, animal rescue and rehabilitation, oil technology and operations. Members of the community will be able to talk to subject matter experts, ask questions, and voice their concerns. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Captain Mark Crosland with the Department of Fish and Wildlife, and I represent the State On-Scene Coordinator for this event. I want to thank the people of Santa Barbara County for their continued support. For 30 years, I've been a game warden and working throughout California. For the last 11 years, I ran a patrol vessel between Monterey and the Channel Islands, so I'm well acquainted with the waters offshore. I've been a lifelong scuba diver and fisherman, and I understand the frustration of our local community due to the fishery closure. That said, well over 90% of the Santa Barbara Channel and the immediate Channel Islands areas remain open to fishing. We are constantly reviewing the fishery closure and want to remind the Santa Barbara community that these measures are in place for safety of the public and the environment. We have many successful stories concerning the rescued wildlife, and will continue responding to help protect and restore the environment. The California Department of Fish and Wildlife oil wildlife recovery crews are some of the top wildlife responders in the world. One of these responders is Dr. Mike Zaccardi, Director of the Oil Wildlife Care Network, who can further speak regarding wildlife impacts. Dr. Zaccardi.
Thank you. We continue to have full wildlife recovery operations going on. We've actually expanded operations to go down through Point Mugu and into Malibu. We also have recovery teams supporting the additional incident in case animals are recovered from there. To date, animals collected for the Refugio event are 39 live oiled birds, 18 dead birds, 22 live mammals, and 10 dead mammals. We have successfully necropsied all 3 dead common dolphins that have been collected and have found no visible oil either on the exterior of the animals or on the interior, so there was no ingestion that we can observe. The necropsies or the post-mortem examinations continue on the additional dead marine mammals that have been collected, and we expect those results in the next few days. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Eric Gelstrom. I'm a superintendent with California State Parks. Refugio and El Capitan State Beach are parks within my area of responsibility. As you know, this oil spill response has greatly impacted those 2 parks, and as a result, they were closed. My team has been working closely with our partners on this oil response and assessing the progress, and today we've had to make the decision to extend our closure until June 18th. I want to make it clear that these closures are not set in stone. We have no way of knowing exactly when this cleanup will end. State Parks is going to open the park as soon as we possibly can, but it has to be safe for our visitors, the public, and the first responders involved in this incident. And we remain committed to working with the Unified Command to protect the natural and cultural resources there. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Rick McMichael, Senior Director of Operations for Plains All-American. I'd like to summarize the progress we've made so far in the work zones. We now have close to 1,200 people working on the response across 5 zones and in the command center. 880 people are out in the field, and 300, including our federal, state, and local agency partners, are planning and managing the operations in the command center. On the water, we continue to track down the remaining oil, above and below the surface and along the shoreline. In terms of sheen, today 2 skimmers are working offshore to recover it. Several other skimmers are standing by to go into service as needed. Although 10,000 gallons of oily water have been collected since the start, the skimmers have only collected negligible amounts offshore for several days now. Nevertheless, more than 10,000 feet of boom continues to be deployed to capture the sheen and protect the shore. This includes pom-pom type absorbent material, which collects the sheen. Pom-poms are specifically designed to collect oil but not water. In terms of the submerged oil we discussed yesterday, we have begun to implement our pre-approved plan. Today we will use sonar tomorrow that is, we will use sonar to survey the initial area roughly a quarter mile west of El Capitan. We'll be working in waters of about 35 feet deep and as close to shore as possible. We will assess the results of this initial survey to both determine where else to search and to direct the recovery efforts. Tomorrow, we also expect to send divers back to the locations where submerged oil was detected by the University of California, Santa Barbara divers. This initial effort will be used to evaluate the safety and efficiency of the recovery methods. As far as the remaining visible oil, much of it is concentrated near the shoreline. As the tides ebb and flow, we will continue to see oil churned up by the wave action. This is why we continue to have teams on the beach to capture any oil that does wash up. On the beaches, 5 shoreline cleanup assessment teams of experts are determining the best method of removing the oil based on where and in what form it washes up on the shore. Of the 880 workers in the field, 600 are cleaning the beach. Much of this work, however, includes collecting oil seaweed and kelp from the shoreline, as well as continuing to manually clean oil from the cliff face and the large stationary rocks. Yesterday, teams of volunteers helped in these efforts. The volunteers have brought passion to both their training and to their work. It just speaks volume of those individuals in this community. All of us at Plains, thank you for your dedication and commitment to this effort. On the bluffs, the area west of southbound 101, we are awaiting approval from Unified Command to proceed. In the culvert area, we have completed our initial cleanup. We are continuing to resurvey it to determine what additional work is necessary. Pat will continue our update, focusing on the work being done at the release site. Thank you.
Good afternoon. At the release site, we are continuing to execute the work plan as approved by Unified Command and our federal regulators, Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, known as PHMSA. It is normal practice required by PHMSA to remove the entire affected joint by making cutouts about 5 feet from the edge of the affected joint. So what is a joint? A joint is a piece of pipe welded together to build a pipeline. They are approximately 40 feet in length. Because this cutout practice normally results in removing a 50-foot section of pipe, it has to be cut into 2 pieces so it can be safely transported by truck. This morning, we removed the affected section of the pipe under the supervision of PHMSA with a metallurgical engineer present that has been approved by PHMSA, along with members of the Unified Command. Following the typical procedure, we removed the entire 40-foot affected joint plus approximately 5 feet on either side of that joint. The affected piece of pipe was divided into 2 pieces so that it could fit into the truck and then wrapped to preserve the condition of the pipe during transport. During this process, we used protective measures to capture any oily residue that could have been remaining in the pipe. After the removal of the pipe, we will begin removal of any remaining oiled soil that was still underneath the pipe itself. Once this is completed, we will replace the 50-foot section of pipe. We expect this to be completed by tomorrow. As we said yesterday, we know the community is interested in this cause. We are not in a position to discuss what we saw, what the pipe looks like, or anything about the affected piece of pipe until after the active investigation by PHMSA is completed. To do so would be total speculation and inappropriate during an active investigation. We appreciate your understanding about that. Finally, I want to remind the community about our claims line. For those of you who have any questions or feel that you have been impacted by this unfortunate accidental release, you can submit a claim and they can call toll-free 866-753-3619. We are actively working to address all claims as they are received. And once again, to the community of Santa Barbara County, we regret this unfortunate accidental release. And Plains stays here to do the right thing, and we will not leave until the job is completed. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to open it up to questions. So does anyone have any questions? Yeah.
Could I have Mr. Rick or Patrick, I'm forgetting your last name, say what they would say to other oil companies in the area who might feel like this is not going to help them move forward?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
What would you say to other oil companies that might feel that this is giving them a black eye to move forward? And on the other hand, what would you say to all those ralliers who want oil out?
So I can't speak on behalf of other oil companies. But what I can say to the community that's out there, we understand your concerns, your frustrations. Okay? None of us here today want to have this unfortunate event. But we are here with the 350 employees of Plains of California and over 5,000 employees of Plains U.S.-wide, along with Unified Command. We're going to address the issue. We're going to investigate it with the federal regulators. We're going to find out what happened, and we're going to make it right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you have any idea how much oil might be submerged below the water?
Below the water?
My name is Dr. David Valentine. I'm a professor at the University of California, Santa Barbara. Last Friday, divers from the University of California, Santa Barbara, and again on this Tuesday, identified areas of shallow reef that contained oil at the seafloor. The oil took a couple of different forms, small pea-sized droplets as well as large aggregations. At this point, what we have are spot observations, and we do not have any way of quantifying how much is present. There has been a team set up here that is trying to address that issue directly, and it's my understanding just from a moment ago that they would begin deployments tomorrow.
Any other questions? Do you mind if I? Oh.
Mr. Hodgins, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. That wasn't my question.
Okay. Noted.
I was wondering, what directive has Plains given to private security companies on site about how they should interact with the general public and with media?
As far as security on site, the security is a combination of state and county police officers, as well as private security that we have at the command center. And the directive is to make sure those entering our areas, to protect them as well as to protect the workers, that they have the proper credentials and have the authority to be in those areas.
Are you aware of how much they've been hassling us?
I'm not aware of anybody being hassled.
And if you were aware of it, what would you tell them?
I would ask if those people have a need to be there. Are they there to help with the response? And if so, they should have the proper credentials to be there. As far as media goes, we have been working actively with the local media to give them tours of designated areas along the beach line. Some of them we've even taken in helicopters to ensure that they can get the story they need.
I have video from an off-duty harbor patrol officer and stills from the last 2 days that jogs every day on Silver Strand where he lives, and it looks just like Goleta as far as the line of oil and big tar balls. How far could a spill flow? You're talking about Orange County. I'm talking Ventura County. What is the likelihood for maybe the UCSB doctor or one of the people that has seen oil spills? How far could this oil be flowing? How far down? Because there's nobody at Silver Strand right now who thinks this is natural seepage because they don't see it like this anymore.
Good afternoon. My name is Jordan Stout. I'm a scientific support coordinator with NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. I've been working on this spill since day one. So if you've been at some of the previous press conferences, we've talked about how oil has been moving since the beginning of this spill. Initially, some of the oil that came from this spill was moving relatively close to shore and to the east because it was wind-driven. Lately, the oil movement has been governed primarily by a circulation that is pushing it to the west. There's certainly a physical possibility that oil from the Santa Barbara area can make it down to some of those areas. I know there's papers in the past that have shown that some of the tar balls in the area historically have some chemical signature of oil in Santa Barbara, but the transit time, and I think in those papers the transit time was given as about something on the order of 10 days or so. But initially, as I said, in this spill, the oil from this spill was moving to the east, and only in the last few days it's really been moving to the west. So two of the things, I haven't actually seen the oil that's on those shorelines. Two of the big telling pieces of information from oil on those shorelines will be the degree that the oil has weathered, and also the chemical analysis of those oils to try to fingerprint them and see whether or not they match up with local seeps or well, first of all, whether they're crude oil or refined product, and if they're crude oil, whether they match up with natural seeps in that area or some other area, or what a potential source area might be. But at this point, I think we don't have enough information. I'm not aware of enough information to really come to a conclusive answer as to what the source might be until we get some more data.
I think that's upsetting the people that live there because when it looks exactly like Goleta and Goleta that is declared, an emergency, to just say, oh, it could be natural seepage when these people are on that beach every day, and I can show you the photos and videos. They just felt like it was too quick for NOAA to come out and say, oh, it could be natural seepage. They wanted to hear the maybe it is.
It is certainly possible, as I said, for oil from the Santa Barbara Channel to move down to some of those beaches. It's been demonstrated, I think, in previous peer-reviewed journal articles. You can look it up. I may be able to get you a citation if that would be helpful. But we don't know enough about the oil that's on those beaches right now because we don't have some of the chemical information and the degree of weathering to really be able to understand or tell the story of where that oil may have come from. For some of the oil in the recent sightings from yesterday, we have NOAA is providing technical support to the other command post, including some hindcast trajectory modeling to try to see where that oil may have come in from in the previous 2 days. So we're trying to nail down what the potential sources are. We recognize there's oil out there. We're not trying to diminish the importance or the level of concern of that oil, and we recognize that there is a possibility that Santa Barbara oil can get down there at times. But we really need to have more information before we can say anything conclusive.
Yep.
Do you know how long it takes to fingerprint oil that's found? Or how long will it take for us to know where the oil on those beaches came from?
David Valentine again from UCSB. The issue of oil fingerprinting is made very tricky in this case because the oil that was spilled is from the same geological stratum that the seep oil comes from. And so the traditional approaches to identifying and fingerprinting an oil are not as useful in this case. So there has been a tremendous effort here the last several days, especially to distinguish and differentiate those oils. And from the university perspective, I think that we're very, very close to being able to do that. Just have to get it in action for some of these samples. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I was told that the CEO of Plains All-American Pipeline went to talk to the Goleta City Council today in person, and I'm just wondering what made them not want to come here today.
I don't know.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
I was told the CEO and Mr. Armstrong went in person to the Goleta City Council special meeting today and just thought maybe if he's in town, he might have come here. Do you know what happened?
So the CEO and chairman of our company has been here from day one when we got here. He did address the 14 community leaders yesterday here at the command post, and then this morning he went down to City Hall and addressed the mayor and the council and expressed once again our sincere regret for this unfortunate event. And our chairman and CEO will continue to be in the area when needed to address any other concerns. Thank you. I believe Mr. Armstrong has addressed the press on several occasions now. Thank you.
All right, we have time for about one more question? Sure.
Yeah, just for Captain Williams.
Okay.
I know you've gone over some of this before, but can you just recap the date and roughly what time the Coast Guard became aware of this and what actions were taken to clean this up and prevent it from spreading?
Yes, sir. Thanks for that question. I don't have the exact times in front of me. I could get those for you, but sometime afternoon, we received a call from the county emergency services that they had identified some pollution in the water, unknown source, unknown quantity. At that time, we have an office here in it's called Marine Safety Detachment Santa Barbara. They dispatched, actually at that point, they also made a call to the National Response Center. I don't have the exact time in front of me, but they made a call to make sure that call was actually made because we were uncertain at that point. It's a number that all of our partner agencies would call as well if they had identified the source as well. because that once we get that to the National Response Center, they can get the calls out to everybody, the notifications to the other agencies. As soon as that was done, they went to the scene. I believe that they coordinated with the fire department, the county fire department, located the source, actually confirmed that there was pollution in the water, then confirmed that the source of the pipeline had been secured, and started this whole response process. We opened the National Pollution Fund, the Oil Spill Liability Trust Fund, early in the afternoon, when at the same time we were dispatching members of my staff from the San Pedro office up to Santa Barbara, as well as calling in the Pacific Strike Team, who are located up near San Francisco, as well as the Public Affairs Assist Team, or the Public Information Assist Team. They were dispatched as well. I think they showed up the next day. All of those resources that we had to call in from out of town, obviously they can't get here overnight. I mean, over like moments of time. Even for me, it took me about 2.5 hours to drive up here from San Pedro that evening. So I don't have the exact times of when everybody checked in, but by the time I showed up, it was evening. There had already been oil spill response vessels on the water, skimming the oily water mixture. They had a press conference that evening, and then we started the tactics meeting that night. We continued through the late hours of the night to plan for the operations the next day. The next day, we set up our incident command post here at the County Emergency Operations Center, and we've just been here ever since. As we've been here every day, resources have grown, and whether it be people or equipment or vessels, aircraft, everything has kind of grown day by day. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but.
As far as I know, there's nobody from EPA that's actually spoken, but I wonder what the response. Yeah, I was actually speaking. The actual response to stop the spilling.
Right.
So I'm actually currently in the Joint Information Center working on. There's so many different agencies involved in a response like this, and so we're happy. We're pulling all that info now, so you can sort of have a time frame of what agencies came to respond where. And so I'm happy to share that with you. I'll get your information afterwards, and happy to share that with you. All right. Well, thanks so much for coming out. I'll be sticking around a little bit. If there's any questions that weren't answered, please see me, and I'll make sure that you get those questions answered today. Thanks very much.